Ooh-wee. Here we go. We're going to talk about Meir Kahane, or Meir Kahane, because we talked about him a little bit earlier, because apparently groups like that still exist. Now, what is he a textbook example of? Meir Kahane is a perfect textbook example of the hypocritical extremist, or just an extremist, or a zealot, whichever word you want to use. I almost feel like there's a checklist that you can have of folks. You'd be like, this goes in the new. I mean, they don't do DSM anymore. They said DSM-5 is the last version, but I'm sure that they'll come up with this. But this is Uncle Thomas's textbook example of extremist hypocrites or zealot extremists. So Meir Kahane, or Meir Kahane, however you want to pronounce it, apparently born Martin David, was an extremist Zionist who created the Jewish Defense League, of course, whose leaders I found out were brutally killed. The leader who directly followed Meir Kahane after his death in 1990, the other guy the next guy in line, was arrested, and he slit his throat and fell off the edge of I think on the balcony. The co-leader was smashed in the head by a white nationalist, a Wakenamp, if you will. This guy was something else. And it revolves around Maimonides. Now, like I say, I've brought this up a couple times, and I remember reading The Avengers. Maimonides, I guess, could be compared to maybe would be compared more to I'm trying to think of it now. I guess more like a Hippocrates, I think. Such as the Hippocratic Oath. Maimonides was one of these guys who really wrote down a lot of laws, became a very central figure in Zionism. And like I say, Zionism, of course, is a very complicated term, which I don't claim to understand. Is that, once again, from my reading of some books, is that Zionism focuses on the cool stories of like the Maccabees and other Jewish groups who fought back against the Gentiles, if you will. I'm just going to cover a little bit about this and, try to make this a fairly short video. He was assassinated by an Egyptian-born U.S. citizen in 1990, but he has some things which kind of the hypocritical zealot. So let's get into this. So he was an ardent admirer of Yakub Jabotinsky, the founder of Haganah. Of course, Jabotinsky was in the British Army and then helped to start the Haganah in 1921. And Haganah, of course, along with Paul Mock, became kind of the forerunners of what would become the IDF. He joined this group called Betar, which was started by Vladimir Zaev Jabotinsky during World War II. They consider that more of a fascist movement when I was reading about this. But yeah. So he was educated. Formal education included Yeshiva of Flatbush, Brooklyn, for elementary school. Journalists, have separately said that Kahane, under the alias of Michael King, and while already married, had an affair and proposed to 21-year-old model Gloria Jean D'Angenio, who used the stage name Estelle Donna Evans. That doesn't sound very Jewish to me. Now, I don't know what the Torah or the Talmud or these other Jewish texts say, but it's ironic, of course, when they say no race mixing and whatnot. The folks that are super about that, like, oh, we don't want race mixing, thou dost protest too much, as Shakespeare said. And as you can see, he had a relationship with this woman, Gloria Jean D'Angenio. Sounds very Italian, doesn't it? You know? And this woman, Kahane allegedly sent a letter to D'Angenio in which he unilaterally ended their relationship. In response, D'Angenio jumped off the Queensboro Bridge and died of her injuries the next day. And of course, Kahane's widow dismissed the incident as lacking proof. Kahane stated the Estelle Donna Evans Foundation in her name. Kahane claimed D'Angenio had been his former secretary in his failed consulting operation. She had died of terminal cancer, and her well-to-do family had endowed the foundation. Robert Friedman reported, in reality, Kahane used the money to finance the JDL. That meant two different things: funding the purchase of supplies for bombings and fattening his own wallet, spending lavishly on trips for himself. Like I say, this is a classic thing with the zealot. The zealot says you need to live a certain way, or maybe they're just hypocrites. You could say that too. You need to live a certain way, no race mixing, none of that, but I can do what I want because I am pure of spirit. Honestly, I've done some hypocritical things in my life as well, so I can't really knock folks like that too hard. And by the way, don't take any of this as psychological advice. I'm just saying. So he's a pulpit rabbi who made a conservative synagogue, which was originally conservative, and made it orthodox, installing a partition separating men and women during prayer, instituting traditional prayers and maintaining a kosher kitchen. He trained Arlo Guthrie for his bar mitzvah. Of course, that's a brother of Woody Guthrie. This machine killed fascists, When his contract was not renewed, he soon published an article entitled End of the Miracle of Howard Beach. Of course, that sounds like a threat, doesn't it? Sounds like a bit of cope. And another aspect, he was a Fed. The late 1950s and early 1960s, Kahane's life of secrecy and his strong anti-communism landed him in a position as a consultant with the FBI. According to his wife Libby, his assignment was to infiltrate the anti-communist John Birch Society and report his findings to the FBI. So he was an informant. So he worked with this guy, Joseph Cherba, who said other things. He began using the phrase never again and conceived the Jewish star and fist insignia, a symbol resembling that of the Black Panther Party. However, Kahane himself opposed the Black Panthers, claiming they had supported anti-Jewish riots in Massachusetts and had left-wing views. Its self-described purpose was to protect Jews from local manifestations of anti-Semitism. This is the JDL. Love of Jewry. One Jewish people, indivisible and united, from which flows the love for and the feeling of pain of all Jews. Dignity and pride. Pride in the knowledge of Jewish tradition, faith, culture, land, history, strength, and peoplehood. Iron. The need to both move to help Jews everywhere and to change the Jewish image through sacrifice and all necessary means, even strength, force, and violence. Discipline and unity. The need that he or she can and will do whatever must be done, and the unity of strength of willpower to bring this into reality. Faith in the indestructibility of the Jewish people. Faith in the greatness and indestructibility of the Jewish people, our religion, and our land of Israel. The JDL favored civil rights for blacks, but opposed black anti-Semites and racism of any form. JDL formed an alliance with black rights groups in what Kahane termed a turning point in black-Jewish relations. The ADL claimed that Kahane preached a radical form of Jewish nationalism, which reflected racism, violence, and political extremism that was replicated by Irv Rubin, the JDL successor to Kahane. He's the one that killed himself while in jail. Hold on, my cat wants out again. Okay, all right, hold on. There you go. Okay, let's continue on here. All right. Okay. So in 1971, Kahane, at the time, he declared he would focus on Jewish education and, was arrested dozens of times. He founded a party called Kach, or Kach, Kach, political party that ran for the Knesset, the Israeli parliament, the Legalist. He won 12,811 votes. Yeah. Basically, I'll cut to the chase here. It's ironic because he had a lot of support in Sephardic communities. It's ironic. Yeah, I was going to say it's ironic that he had a lot of support in Sephardic communities in Israel. As far as I know, not support in Ashkenazi circles or in Ashkenazi groups or in Mizrahi groups, but in Sephardic ones. Now, of course, like I say, there is a hierarchy in Israel that a lot of anti-Zionists don't really talk about. But yeah, between the Ashkenazis, the Jews that come from Europe and come from the United States, of course, are at the top of the heap, arguably. You don't see many of them. Most of the IDF, as far as I know, made up of Sephardic and Mizrahi Jews. And of course, they're very much, opposed to, they wanted to, the Jewish exodus from Arab lands, total of some 750,000. He said that basically, here's what he says is that this is the whole idea of Eretz Israel. Eretz Israel also includes parts of Lebanon and certain parts of Syria and part of Iraq, all the way to the Euphrates River. One critic suggested that following Kahane's plans would mean a perpetual war between Jews and Arabs. Kahane responded, there will be a perpetual war regardless, with or without Kahane. Oh boy. So yeah. And of course, he had plenty of supporters, including Bob Dylan. This is interesting. Made positive comments about Kahane. In a 1971 interview for Time magazine, Dylan said he's a really sincere guy. He's really putting it all together, according to Kahane. According to Kahane, Dylan attended several meetings of the Jewish Defense League to find out what we're all about, and he started to have talks with the rabbi. Subsequently, Dylan downplayed the extent of his contact with Kahane. Kind of typical, isn't it? Another supporter is Menachem Mendel Schneerson. For those that know, Rabbi Schneerson was the gentleman who was driving through Brooklyn, and they were racing to get somewhere. They hit the side of a building, this and that, and his driver hit a black child, which led to many riots in New York City. Of course, that's something else, but yeah, that he looked up to Jewish law, and the incorporation of Jewish law into Israeli policy. After hearing of Kahane's death, Schneerson remarked that one of the greatest Jewish leaders in history has fallen. And the thing is, I'll put it this way, yeah. And of course, Baruch Goldstein was a supporter of Kach. Was a Kach supporter. 29 Muslim worshippers were killed. Now, of course, Baruch Goldstein was beaten to death there. So, and of course, led to many. Oh my goodness, I know I'm taking too long. Oh man, 15 minutes. Okay, we're getting there. But yeah, I mean, to me, this is just kind of so typical of the extremist sort of personality and the, well, you need to live this way, but, for me, I have, yeah. And of course, as it does, same thing with, the extremist black separatists, feel as you will. In 2017, that the Forward reported that some of Kahane's followers were aligning themselves with white nationalists and the alt-right. Other Kahanists declared that such moves did not reflect Kahane's teachings and they supported that declaration by arguing that Kahane worked together with African Americans. With some, not others. Yeah. Okay, we're going to have to edit that down a little bit. Oh, well. But yeah, this is kind of the example of it, where it's just like extremists meet up with extremists, I don't know. Like I say, it's the same type of thing to me with these other groups. It's very complicated and everything else like that. But yeah, to me, he's a perfect example. To me, he's no different than people like, you know what? I'm not going to go there. I'm not going to. I was going to, but no. I'm just going to say meh, really. Yeah. And you can make your own judgments at the end of the day. Hopefully, I'll enjoy this. See you later, and goodbye.